And you're always going to go say, well, we go out far enough. There's probably something out there, or you go even farther than that. It's just going to be, well, nobody will say that space is nothingness because it's unfathomable in our imagination. You can't. There is no way to get to the point where you even because basically you're thinking your thought uh, is you're going to realize, or you might not realize that the fact of your thought or your thinking, or the fact that you're putting energy toward it, that there was something in nothingness, and even you finding it, that shield or whatever it is, maybe a shield or force that of where your thought is. Say it's however far your thought can travel, and not your thought, but the energy of gathering. Say it's like your brain is like a big giant receiver, and all you do is receive, and then it's your makeup of how you deduce situations, how you brought yourself up, how you deduce. I just said deduce situations, but not even situations. But if you've proven, if you can prove that some things happen certain ways, that's basically not a knowing, but a learned knowledge. It's dang words. That's a problem. It's like the words aren't advanced enough to go into the theory of thought, except because you'd have to make up words, and they say, well, that's not even a word. Well, if you haven't realized, a lot of the words in the dictionary aren't necessarily have truthful meanings to what the word is. I could go through the dictionary and read them, but I'm not going to read words and then give my opinion, because a lot of times there's different levels of what you see that word at. Say, I don't know, I'm not even going to, ice. Okay, ice, look at, they use it as the end of a word of police. So ice is at the end of the word of police. It's still, even though you're saying, well, that's not a word if it's ice, well, and then they turn it into a different word instead of frozen water. Which frozen water, the real word for frozen water is not necessarily ice. I mean, look at how many different languages there are that describe the word ice. Not necessarily ice, but frozen water. None of them are the same. So therefore, the description of what frozen water is has not been found. They haven't even found, that's basically what I'm saying is when you find the description of the word, everybody's going to use that word for that description. That's going to be the word. It's not going to be different languages used in different ways. That's the truth of the word is going to be that word. Back to what I was saying between knowing and realizing. I was looking up not what religion was, but maybe known. I don't know. I was looking about neutrinos, and I got into space, and I starting to get into what is I don't even remember, but and another thing. I won't even get into that. I'll do another quick vid on that, but that's just the difference between known and realization, as far as I'm concerned. Is knowing is what you're say you're born. It's basically your breathing, even your you're not you're necessarily spanked to breathe. That's to get you to cough in case there's any fluid in your lungs, or any fluids that when you was born you're to expel it out, and that's the reason they spank you, apparently, not to get you to breathe, because if you sucked in that first air, they need to expel that air, so they spank you to expel that air or that fluid out of your lungs to make sure that you're not sucking air, which will cause a pneumonia in your lungs if they don't spank you. So and then that's your heart knows. It's just not a known, but that's not even even though your heart is beating, going to the point where your first heartbeat, is it a realization knowing that your heart is beating? Do you realize that? Uh, whether the brain, I don't know if I'm pretty sure I've through the physiology of the human body and physiology of all the animals and trees and stuff. Been through that, but they don't. The way I went through it when I was a kid isn't the way that they study it. And everything I've found to be true, and the way I wasn't taught. I didn't read it. It was more like I have a thought, and then I'll wait. There might be an animal. A lot of this stuff was realized because an animal reacted to what I thought. Whether it's a squirrel, a bird, it's the way their movement is the realization that my thought and their thought are connected, and they're agreeing with that thought, that they're basically saying, yes, we understand that, we've thought that, and you're on the correct path as far as that theory or whatever is known. Now, a lot of people might say, well, I don't understand that, or no, and most of them will, a lot of people that are, they don't want to be outdone. I'm not trying to outdo anybody. I'm just giving the way I've come to realize what's true in life, besides traditionalization or studying a religion or an educational upbringing or anything like that, finding what I believe to be truth by something older than the lying human race that wants you to believe something that they say to be true so that you follow their lead instead of truth. And I've found that truth, now you get truth from plants too, but you have to wait a long time. Sometimes you have to wait a long time. Sometimes you're in the right mindset that something happening in nature, say, I remember one time when I was a little kid, and it was something about, I can't remember, I used to remember what it was, and then I think it was before I went to school, or before I you had to start really learning in school. I might have been 6 years old, before you really had to start learning stuff in school. And there was a leaf on a tree or something, and I can't remember what it was. I was asked, because I was used to, by the time I was that young, even when I was 3 and 4 years old, asking. Basically, I would turn to an animal way before I turned to a human, because you can see a human wanting to change the way you think by the way they answer and how they delay, and their posture and the way they answer and their tone and everything else, their eyes, you can feel the resonance off their energies as to if they're lying or not. Now, the way I see animals, I've never seen an animal, I've never believed that an animal or nature to lie. Now, I might be out of step with what is going on, and you can feel the realization. There might be other people that think this way too, but I think most people learn from other humans, and that's the reason society and civilization is the way it is, because they just believe what other humans say. And I just don't believe that's the way the truth of the universe is, which I know it's not the way. I know following humans is not the way, and the knowledge of the universe. Look at all the liars and two-face, and it's just backstabbing of the human race. And you won't find that. Sure, there's stuff in nature that parents will kill their youngest sibling, like a bird or something, or a horse will kill a lazy colt. Anyway, I'm not talking about the freak incidents, which that's a freak incident, which you could find reasoning for it, but my way is I find the truth in what I think, and animals will not react. They react to, if you've got a trained dog, they'll react to your words. But if you try to, a lot of time, very, very seldom, like maybe 3 times in my lifetime, have I ever talked, unless it's a domesticated animal like my dogs or something like that, can I talk to an animal like I think to a wild animal. Because a wild animal, they do not want the noise of words or whatever it is that words is, where it's expelling noise into the atmosphere. They don't want that. They don't want to have that. They would rather have peace of mind. They would rather. But can I get that from my thought? I guarantee that now you might not be around an animal, or that animal might not be in your presence. You have to the animal. Now you might envision it when you're your thought. You think it's nothing. It has nothing to do. The thought has nothing to do with, are my pants, do I look good in these pants, or should I buy this car, or anything. It has nothing to do with man-made knowledge. It has nothing to do with. It's all about nature, the universe, space, and what it is like to live on a planet. That's basically, it has nothing to do with. I mean, there are things that they have thought through the science where you get a realization, and then there's an animal, or you envision an animal, and I've seen it. I've been where I've envisioned an animal, and then it's not around me. You just like see it in not a cloud, but it's just a lot. That's the reason a lot of animals have their coats, like say a giraffe. A lot of animals don't have their thought on this planet. I mean, they're here, but when they're in a herd and they're thinking without predators around, they're more unearthly. Now they might have both transcendence between their thought, and maybe their mind is space, and their heart is earth. So you could go as far as to say that your mind is from what you think in space, and your heart is what you know of Earth. So, like say there's a lot of things like the spots on leopards and giraffes and stuff. So I can't remember what the name of those giraffes. It's like another word that they named something, like all the animals that are named that are for different reasons, but they haven't been found. And you're not going to find, say, one giraffe to another. You're not going to be able to say that giraffe is this sort of name, and then you'll be able to put that name on this giraffe, because their spots differentiates them as the way they think. Even though they're the same species as far as humans are concerned, you're not going to be able to name this giraffe and even a brother or sister giraffe the same thing, because their spots are arranged and their thought it's basically this. They might think the same, but this one is going to have their reason that their coat was created with these different changes in spots. You can say it's DNA, and DNA is changed by thought, and all the thought that led up to that, which is what changed their patterns. But the patterns could be like an Oort cloud, like I've found the giraffes patterns, say the inner circle of their patterns. I can't remember what kind of giraffe it is. They got those large spots, but like part of the spot is like an Oort cloud. Another part of that could be a water source on the planet. So it's like that's just a simple explanation. And then you get into the hair fiber of each hair fiber and the coloration of each hair fiber. So you're getting into something that people say, oh, it's walking on fours. We can't communicate it with it, so we can kill it because 5,000 years ago, some barbarians came up with the idea that we're better than animals, and that's that's where we are now. At 5,000 years ago, barbarians came up with the idea that we're better than animals, and that's the reason. And that's the reason I'm so disgusted with the religion and people that follow religion, that say their religion's the only way and the truth and the way and all this, and their God is this and that, and it's just not what I have found to be true. I've went through religions, as many as I could fathom, even the new ones that have been building up. It's some of those were built up from the thought being gathered, and they say, "Oh, we're gonna," it's a lot of people. They deduce a thought, and they think, "Well, they're gonna ride this out," and they capture a lot of other people's minds with just riding out that one thought. And these other people say, "Oh, I've never heard that before," or "I've heard that, and this person's saying it, so it must be him," and they just gather around this and creates a cult. And basically, that's all religions are, giant cults. And some of them, people don't even have to, a lot of people go to church because it's a socialization. They'll go there because if they're in a business, that they have their own business, or they know that other people will look at them in a kinder way than saying that we don't believe in this. And you know how people react to people that are vegans. If you don't eat meat, they don't trust you, which should be the other way around. If you eat meat, you shouldn't be trusted. But there's also people that, I'm not trying to get into problematic situations here, but homosexuals that say they're vegans and yet they're consuming, they're putting meat in their mouth or whatever it is, lesbians or whatever they are, they're still, they're an entity using animal flesh, the human form, that thought of by animals. Of course, we bred. Now, I'm not saying that animals create us nowadays, except to get into that, you can't get into the depth of everything. You have to stair step, because people have to observe and realize this step before they can realize this step. And the difference in between those steps is almost like the difference in pH. You have this step, and then the pH to this step is 10 times more. It's like level 1, 8 compared to pH level 8 compared to pH level 7 or 6. If you go on from 7, which is what, water or a neutral, and you go to 8, which is alkaline, it's the stair step is not just a one next level step. It's from 7 to 8 is 10 times, and from 7 to 9 is like 100 times, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing in the realization of what truth is to the next level of truth, to a stair step of realization of truth and what's real. And so knowing and realization and speaking, and all these people that they know these you could say it's criminally insane that they take. There's people, it's politicians, religious. I've seen them all take words that I know are from realization that they didn't realize, they just spoke it. A lot of people can speak from other people's thought, and that's how a lot of these leaders, they might have a speech. There's a lot of stuff like this. Science doesn't do that so much, but I have seen it. And some science, they'll deny it and they'll stick traditionally with science. But it's I haven't seen not one group where they haven't had people, and most of it. In fact, even in and people are raised that way. It's like they call it. I don't know if it's instinct thought, or where they just speak other people's minds. They're not mind reading. They don't. It's like almost like barbarians without thought, because they're speaking without knowing what they're saying, but they have like the insane ability to know what's being, without thinking, to know what they're saying isn't going to be wrong, even though there are people that they speak like that who are wrong, because they'll not even misinterpret it, they'll interpret it, and that's where their thought kicks in. They'll be saying it and they'll realize what they're saying, and then their thought will kick in so that they can create the belief that what they're saying, they'll say something, the truth will be going this way, that the thought and the words that should be spoken are going this way, and they'll take it this far to where it's realized that they're the ones speaking it by others, but for them to, instead of continue on that line of truth, they'll veer it off to claim it as their own. Now, this is I don't know if this is a traditional lineage thought. I mean, I could go down that, but in most of it, it's there is like saying blood is thicker than water. Water's deeper than blood. Now, you could say, well, if we were people on other planets, then blood, it's still blood. Water helped plants grow. Plants were around before animals. And so water, being that it's been around longer, is deeper than blood. Now, you could say that blood has more things in it than purified water. It's purified water, but the stuff, there's water. Water makes up, what is it, whatever percentage of what blood is. So basically, contaminated blood is just contaminated water, is what you can say. So it doesn't make it thicker than water. You can just say blood is contaminated water. I could speak more on this, but I'm just, oh man, I got stuff to do. Got to get some stuff done. It's a weekend.